where, of course, I try to deconstruct world-class performers, whether they be billionaire investors, chess prodigies, athletes, and everything in between, to pull apart, tease out the tactics and tools and resources that you can use. And this episode was a real treat. I had so much fun with this. It was easily one of the most enlightening and lucid conversations about physical training I've ever had, and we covered everything, meaning strength, flexibility, endurance, and beyond. And my guest is none other than Pavel Tsatsouline, and yes, that is how you say it. He is chairman of Strong First Inc. and was born in Minsk, not Minsk, Minsk. I always have so much trouble saying that. USSR, which is now part of Belarus. In the 1980s, he was a physical training instructor for Spetsnaz. That's also another one I want to mispronounce always. It's not Spetsnaz, Spetsnaz. The elite Soviet Special Forces units. Pavel is now a subject matter expert to the U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Secret Service, and the U.S. Navy SEALs, and he is also, perhaps you know this or not, he is widely credited with introducing kettlebell to the United States. The ubiquitous kettlebell, which is called kettleball by maybe that should be changed to make things easier. In any case, over the last several years, Pavel has become a friend of mine. I'm honored to call him a friend, and his input was critical to the success and many of the experiments of the 4-Hour Body. Whether you have heard of him or not, stick with this interview, prepared to have your mind blown, and I really don't say that lightly. You're going to enjoy this, and you'll have a lot to take notes on. And there will, of course, be tons in the show notes at farmworkweek.com/podcast. But without further ado, here we go. Please meet Pavel Tsatsouline. Pavel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim.
I'm so thrilled to have you start with the answer to a question that I ask all of my guests, which is, how do you pronounce your name properly?
Pavel Tsatsouline.
Tsatsouline. And,
That's right.
And you mentioned before we came on what you tell people at Starbucks if you order coffee, and then what is that?
It just has to be Pablo. Coffee for Pablo. There's no other way.
And I've really admired your work and expertise, and also just your method of teaching, quite frankly, for so many years. And I was having trouble piecing together how we first came in contact. Of course, I was well aware of your work prior to us having any direct contact, but how we came to know each other.
Yes, I do, Tim. As you, I'm a big fan of simplicity in my life and different aspects of my life, and 4-Hour Workweek really resonated. And at that point, I remember writing an article. I entitled that article, Ferris Bueller's Day at the Gym. And I sent you that article and submitted it for a blog.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Okay. And that really set cascade of events in motion, and I became very, very fascinated. I mean, of course, like a lot of people, I think I was initially exposed to you as the strength trainer who used the word comrade a lot, and really hadn't delved into a lot of the details of your strength training specifically, which we'll of course get into. And I guess that there are two questions I'd love to ask, but the first is, what do people consider you, the people who know you well, what do they consider you world class at?
Tim, I have been able to take very complex subjects, take them apart, and put them back together in a manner that's very simple, that can be delivered to regular people without losing the essence of what these of the systems. So I'm talking about specifically serious strength training. I'm talking about both programming, and I'm talking about what I would refer to as the body language of strength.
And can you explain for people who are perhaps not inductees into the world of strength training yet, what do you mean by programming?
Programming, planning your training. You go from A to B. You want to add 50 pounds to deadlift. This is what you do. And unfortunately, the world of programming is very confused. Well, the whole world of fitness is very confused. And again, what I attempt to do is to bring principle-based training. So when you understand the principles, applications are many, applications are easy.
Right, and I think that's where I feel such a degree of kinship with what you try to do with these subjects, because of course, whether I succeed or fail, and sometimes I do both, that's very much what I try to do with the subjects that I tend to obsess on. And for those who aren't familiar with your background, with many different types of elite athletes and also special forces and so on, would you mind just giving a little bit of background on your bona fides, so to speak, some of your background as it relates to training?
Sure thing. I used to be a PT training instructor, physical training instructor for Spetsnaz, the sort of special forces, and my education is in sports science. And I did, over the years, train a number of high-end units in the West. I've been a subject matter to the U.S. Marine Corps, to the U.S. Secret Service, to U.S. Navy SEALs and others. And my methods are used officially by some very high-end military and counter-terrorist units in two countries that are NATO allies of the United States. What I do, pardon me?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's just my brain erupted with something nonsensical. Please continue.
So what I do is I take methods that perform very well in very rugged environments, and I take these methods and I apply it to other environments. So somebody decides, I just want to change my life, I want to get stronger, I want to have a better game of tennis, I want to succeed at a given sport. I take these same methods that have been tested by operators before, and I bring these people the same methods.
And just to drill into that, because I've seen many, I'm sure at this point, thousands of photographs that are sent to you by deployed troops overseas or people in special forces of their kettlebells or their rigged gyms with sort of makeshift pull-up bars and whatnot. But what is it that you have to keep in mind when you're designing or why have your methods had such appeal for elite military? What are the things that you've considered perhaps that other people have not for those types of trainees?
Well, Tim Plutarch, who said that thousands of years ago that the training of a soldier and the training of an athlete is radically different. That an athlete has the luxury of a pampered lifestyle, and the soldier doesn't. So this is pretty much the difference. So what you want to do is you want to build a training that becomes, in the words of one author, anti-fragile. It's a training that thrives on a very harsh environment that's really robust in these different environments. And that's pretty much the difference. How do we do that? We have to strip all the non-essentials down. Pretty much what you do in your work with different, with business, with lifestyle, and so on. And once we get down to the things that really matter, when we apply them, then everything's going to next person.
Have you spent time with Sam?
No, I have not.
I should introduce you guys at some point. He's exactly what you see is what you get if you've read his books, and I think you guys could really hit it off. What you just said brought to mind the conversation that I had with a friend of mine who was formerly Navy SEAL, and now he's doing things that he can't tell me about. Not that he could tell me much about what he did before, but he, and actually, not to be named, but now that I think of it, you introduced us.
So let's call him Victor.
Victor, yes, Victor, amazing guy, and Victor is the most efficient trash compactor I've ever seen in my life. He can eat anything and make fuel out of it, and he was criticizing in a very good-natured way some of his colleagues, because he said, well, you know, some of the guys that I work with out in the field, some of them are the bodybuilder types, and they get really grumpy if they can't have their protein shake every 2 or 3 hours. I view it as a real competitive and practical advantage that I can consume anything and then go for a 30, 40, 50-mile run.
Well, and Victor, for his strength also, that gentleman is exceptional, both in his strength and his endurance, but for his strength, he relies on the nervous system, not so much on the musculature. And again, that's what's so different. You can, if you look at a typical person and how do you get him strong? Let's say that you have a 4-cylinder engine, and what the person would do is they would make that 6-cylinder engine. But before you're firing in 2, now you're firing in 3. But if instead what you do is you learn to fire in a 4. So there are ways of training your nervous system to engage your capacity so much more fully. And if you look at high-level performers at like bodyweight in some fields, let's say a very high-level martial artist, somebody very skinny breaking a stack of boards, or very skinny guy like Lamar Gant, deadlifting 5 times his body weight.